Hello, welcome, welcome. Today we wanted to do a guest expert panel with some of my friends and previous clients and current clients and coworkers all together wrapped up in to talk about race in America. And really this is such, and also let's just say worldwide too, because we do have representation outside of America. Yep. And many of us are international. So what, that is not, although I think there's more in terms of the power inequality in the US, it is still a pressing issue all over the world. And so let's talk about that. If you guys want to each go around and introduce yourself so everybody knows a little bit about you, who you are, and what you do, in case they haven't seen all of these ladies, except Kori, but you guys no, actually every person on here has already been on our podcast once. So our audience kind of knows you guys, but let's just do a round robin introduction.
I start with Obehi first.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm Aprille Reed. I'm an entrepreneur and webinar funnel architect. I love helping coaches and consultants leverage and harness the power of webinars and also automating their business. I particularly love working with moms because we're so busy and I'm so busy, and that's why I love webinars and I love automating my business so that I have more time to do the things that I love. I actually met Mariana because she was a mentor and coach to me, and she's fabulous.
Thank you.
All right, that's me.
And then Obehi, if you want to go next.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Obehi Alafoje, and I am a psychologist and productivity coach, and I'm based in the UK. I've lived here for about 22 years, so I'm originally from Nigeria, so which is why I have a different perspective out of all of this. But my target audience have been coaches and consultants, female entrepreneurs, and I teach them how to be more productive, manage their time, focus better, so they can get things done. And yes, I'm a current client of Mariana, and I also know Aprille because my sister was her VA. It's like a whole big family over here. Yeah. So yes, I'm happy to be here. Brilliant.
Yay. And then Kori.
I'm Kori. I was also a client of Mariana's, and I currently work for her as her project manager and customer success coach. So many have probably seen me in the community and then behind the scenes in the client groups. I also run my own business, and my current passion project with that is helping parents of nonverbal autistic children to connect with them and fully get past their own mental barriers of that they can't help their child because they aren't a professional. You can't get any more professional than being their mom, and you just need to realize, or their dad. It's just bringing that out to them. And yeah, that's me.
Awesome. All right. And we have Gabby here too. On the harmonica. So, so really, I think let's start with, I don't even know, I think one thing we can start with is really how almost invisible this thing is, right? For people who have not seen the discrimination firsthand, right? I think that's kind of how it's become so freaking pervasive, right? It because there is a segregation, right? Where the suburban families are in the suburbs. And I can speak to this because I've lived it. Okay. So I will tell you, I've lived in the suburbs. I was the only Hispanic in our whole school. There was one Mexican girl, and she had red hair and really light skin. So she did not look like a traditional Mexican, stereotype. And then there was me, and we were the only two Hispanics in our whole school. And then there was one Black guy, and it was the stereotype. So they won the lottery and moved to our neighborhood. And that's kind of like how it was in terms of race and diversity in our school. And we lived in a very affluent place. And I will tell you, like, when you're not around diversity, you miss out. I think that that's another piece. I think that, whites aren't really seeing that when you're not in a diverse area, you miss out. Like, we can have, like, Obehi and I can have a conversation about being outside of the country. Kori and I can as well, right? Like, what it's like to live outside of the country. And I can't do that with, my white friends. And I think that that's part of how all of this becomes so insidious, is because people just thinking alike are together, and then there's not a coming together, if that makes sense. What have you guys seen? Like, what has your experience been like growing up, or how you were raised? Like, how has it been, if you feel comfortable? Because I also know I don't want to bring anything up uncomfortable, but Kori, I know we've talked about it. Yeah.
For the background, because I have to give it a little. I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, which is a wonderfully diverse area. And we moved from New Orleans when I was 6 to Berkeley, California, which again is a wonderfully beautiful, diverse area. We could walk down in whatever area and we would be, like in San Francisco, you have Japantown, you have Chinatown, you have a little Italy, there's a little Russia. It's really, it's so beautiful there. Then we moved to Washington, D.C. Again, wonderfully cultural, diverse experience, but almost on the opposite of when we were in California. It was mostly Hispanic, Asians, Blacks, whites. That's how the majority broke down. When we moved to DC, in the school that I was in, I was the only Asian kid in the entire middle school from grades 5 through 8, and we lived down the street from Capitol Hill. So I later learned, all of the Asian kids were at the private school. It's like, all right, whatever. I didn't think anything of it. But it was like my 3rd or 4th day there, and a mulatto boy, I don't know if that's the right term to use still, so I apologize if I offend. But he came up to me and he held out his arm next to mine and he asked me, "Is you Black?" And I looked back at him and was like, "No, I'm Asian." And he looked back at my arm next to his and he said, "No, you're Black. We have the same skin tone." It's like, huh, okay. And I didn't know quite how to proceed. This was 5th grade. But that to me was like the first time I think I really started to see the differences and starting to think about all of that. And then again, we were at the American Museum of American History, and they have an interactive exhibit there for the history of African Americans in America, starting from slavery, going on through segregation. And one of the exhibits is like this mock subway station. So they have 2 water fountains, one for whites, one for coloreds. Then they have the entrances, again, one for whites and one for coloreds. And as we were going up to it, our docent was ushering all of us appropriately, or so I thought. So I was with with the Black kids in my class because I'm not white, clearly. She put her hand on my shoulder and physically moved me through with the white kids. It's like, I remember like looking back up at her, like, I'm not white. And she said, "Just move along." And like, so those 2 things I think are always going to stand out to me in terms of, like, crap, and it made such an impression then. And then moving from DC, we went to Toledo, Ohio. So for us, at least for me at the time, it was going from this incredibly diverse area to a mostly white neighborhood. Then from Toledo, we moved to Albany, which, like, okay, challenge accepted. This is more, you know, even less of a diverse area. And Mariana, just like you were saying, it wasn't until we had moved to places like Toledo and Albany that I really started to see just how the disparity of cultural representation, of the diversity, of just everything. And it's sad for me. And it's angering. It's like, why? Why can't it?
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then even going back to places in the South, I've said to people numerous times over, there are areas in the deep South I will not go outside by myself.
Yeah.
I may be able to pass as white in some areas because of the way I speak, the way I conduct myself, but I'm not white. And it's just, it's not.
And
it's sad,
that's I
it's
think
sad
part
to me
of
to
the
say that
problem.
too.
Yeah, exactly, because we have to veil our voice.
Mhm.
And I find that, you know, for Blacks, it's even more so. It saddens me that many Blacks can't speak as they normally would and have to put on this pretentious, like, you know, fake white girl voice. And I mean, I find myself doing the same thing. So, but it's so unspoken, right? It's so subconscious almost, that we don't even realize it's happening, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. We call it in trying to assimilate, when you're just trying to survive, and then eventually you learn that you're doing it so early, so quickly. If you were born in the country like in the UK or in the US, you might acclimatize very quickly without realizing you've done it. But when you come from another country, and when I came to the UK, I was 19, so I'd already fully formed as, you know, a teenager, and to relatively be myself. My accent has changed because it's been 22 years, right? So it's natural that I would have done that, you know, in school, in classes and stuff like that. But I would have probably found myself acclimatizing faster, because I was the only black, actually, no, we're two of us, black girls in my first year university, studying psychology. We're mostly women, because women are drawn to psychology in general, but in terms of the diverse, this is in London as well, only two of us in that class, so it makes natural sense that we'd be very close. So we're still very good friends today. But
Wow.
we had to, it's not that we had to, it just came naturally. So I didn't ever remember thinking, right, you're gonna have to do this now, you're gonna have to speak like this now. I could still wear my braids. It's funny because I've taken my braids out because COVID. Um, but but I could still wear my braids. I could still do the things that felt ethnic, in UK, because that's just how I was, and I was in a very diverse city in London, so I didn't look out of place in any particular shape or form, which meant that the any racial slurs or any of that would have been very hidden, very very covert. So I've become Nigerian, so a lot of it would have been over my head. I'm not used to it. I didn't get taught it, you know, this is what someone means. This is the dog whistle thing going on. And on one hand, I think that kept me safe because I couldn't react to what I didn't know someone was trying to say. Did that make sense? So I just
Yeah,
moved along
definitely.
or
Yeah.
smiled along. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? It's just like,
Right,
oh, hello.
right.
Because you're not going to realize until
No,
after the fact.
until after the fact, when someone said, oh, by the way. So that was, so when I think about me, who came at 19, and I think about my cousin in Gaza, who I live with, who was here as a child at age 8. So that's pretty much childhood. Her different experience, because she had to, her accent was automatically English because she was 8 when she came. Therefore, going into university, going into working in corporate, she automatically acclimatized. She never wore braids until she left corporate. And she didn't realize why she never wore them, because it looked unprofessional. There was the sublime stuff. She said, her favorite color, if you ask her, what's your favorite color? To tell her favorite color is gray. Whose favorite color is gray? But she learned to like a color that muted her. So she'd wear gray and black, you know, and then she might accentuate it with some color, but she really literally grayed out herself to fit in. Her hair, yeah, her hair was relaxed and short, and it was easy because she said, I was trying to avoid anybody saying, oh, I like a neck, very ethnic, you know, to just trying to prevent someone from saying something where she had to respond.
Where she would have to censor herself.
Yeah, because but what she did, she just laughed it off. So she laughed it off and because she's very sociable. So that's what she did. But she didn't realize that what we've been talking about since this whole incident had happened. One of the reasons why she didn't progress as well as she could have done, as intelligent and brilliant, the first class honors degree holder.
Ngazi is wicked smart.
Did not rise the rank. She did everything right as far as we're concerned. Everything right. Until she had kids. Now you could say, oh, you know, you couldn't travel to here, you couldn't travel to Brussels. So, you know, she didn't get promoted for a long time. And of course, what that does is you internalized it, that it must be you who is at fault. You're not working hard enough, you know. And so it's one of those weird things for us. I also realized this last few weeks, why I always describe, especially in the coaching space, right? Coaching space where it's mostly white people, and we're trying to break in there. And I realized why I always led to describing myself as I'm a psychologist, because I am first. And I realized I was using that term to make myself credible from the off, because there's too many coaches out there. A productivity coach, yeah, there are a few out there. I found a way to combine them to do awesome work, but I still had to feel like I don't want to label myself. What do I care about being a psychologist? Yes, I'm a person, I'm a sister, I'm all these things, but I led with that. And I realized why, because I needed the credibility from the start. I didn't want to have to debate it. I didn't want to have that conversation about tell me your credentials. So I put it out there, yeah, like a badge. I didn't need it badge. I never needed it personally. But I created it because there we are, me and Ngadi, two Black women in the UK trying to run a business. We were often taught by the fact that the reason why we're not progressing as quickly is because we have this skin. And no one like, well, we find that what can you do? That's the skin you got. And you know, to have a small business, you want to attract the people who want to be with you. That's why it was important. We needed to be honest about who we were. Otherwise, we would just attract the wrong sort. So she started wearing braids because I wear braids. So she said, no, I don't want to keep doing my hair. I'm just going to have my braids on. And it took her a while to work out what the hell have I done. But it was her coming out of her shell. Isn't that something as simple as hair?
Yeah.
Hair would create a whole emotional turmoil about something.
That speaks so big, though, to just, I think, the culture in general. And on our stretch of neighborhood, we have two or three ethnic, we have three ethnic barbershops, beauty salons. And I'm looking and I'm like, on one hand, it makes perfect sense to me. On the other hand, it just pisses me off because that shouldn't have to happen. The diversity should be within the bigger business. You know, I get it that it's a chance for people to be in business for themselves. So that part of me is super happy for them. But I think it's the fact that it has to happen in the first place is just...
Yeah, and I don't think it's... I think that the intention behind it is let's make the hair look more straight, more white, and that's even in my own self. Like my hair is curly. I'm wanting to represent curly hair and no longer straighten because I see my daughter being like, "Mommy, I want one of those." Like in terms of the hair straightener, and I'm like, "Hell no, like, you are not getting that."
Yeah.
April, do you have thoughts or
Yeah, as I guess, the only Black person on the panel from the US. In my experience, it's not so invisible. But I can't say it's something I deal with daily, weekly, or a monthly basis, but I don't know. It's like attracts like. It's kind of like Facebook news feed. It's going to attract the things that you like or you follow, or the people that look like you, or even TV. You just notice certain things. So it's, I would say, in our experiences, it's more common. So yeah, like your friend Obehi. Yeah, definitely. And I'll just give you like context. So when I had kids, it's like, okay, I'm going to give them quote unquote white names so that when somebody sees their name on a resume, they can't just make a quick judgment. Oh yeah, I know that person. And so they could look at the context of the resume and give a fair shot by that resume. I mean, it's stuff like that. And even purchases. So we want to get a Cadillac Escalade. My husband wants to get a Cadillac Escalade. I'm nervous about it because I don't want to be pulled over because I don't look like the type of person that can own a Cadillac Escalade, because I'm fearful that the assumptions are going to be, okay, either, how could you afford this? You must have stole it. Or how can you afford this? Your boyfriend must be a drug dealer or something. But these are things in my mind, because this is just what you're taught in the culture, and is what you see on the news and what you see on TV, and is what you hear from your cousins and your friends and other people that look just like you. So it's crazy. It's hot. It's getting to the 90s. Every year I go to like the water section and I want to get super soakers and stuff. And it's like, even though it's big and it's yellow and it's orange, I better not. God forbid my kids are shooting with super soakers and it's mistaken for AR or whatever it's called, AR-15 or 47.
No, and I literally saw that in my neighborhood, I will say. We really saw that. He was about 7 to 8 years old and he was arrested for playing with a water gun. And that was when I started to wake the fuck up. Like, what the hell is happening here? And also add to the context of, it wouldn't be, I mean, like, so arrested is just beyond. I mean, if I was his mother, I would have been fucking furious. And like looking out for, I mean, you think your child is outside playing and then they are taken under police custody and questioned and all of that. Right? Like, no way. And then secondly, thinking about the fact that because of these police brutalities, like, it could have meant that child died because of a mistake. Is so, I mean, that's where I think this is so wrong. And that's
context on it too, Mariana. Did that happen in Texas or did it happen in Buffalo?
In Buffalo. In the suburbs of Buffalo, and it was in Cheektowaga specifically. But I mean, and even my ex was like similar type of situation. He wasn't doing anything bad in our own home, and that is where it is not okay because of what you're saying. Like, as a Black person, you literally cannot do the normal things. Right? And that is not okay, because, I mean, someone asked on a forum the other day, and I told Obehi and Kori this yesterday. Someone asked in a forum yesterday, it was on Facebook and whatever, And I had been seeing all Black Lives Matter stuff, just like you said, April. My feed was inundated with people supporting what was happening and wanting to make it good and all of that. And then all of a sudden I see a little one creeping in, and it was, what could be so wrong with these people's hearts that they're going to riot and cause this kind of this much anger, like saying it's wrong, you know what I mean? And I was like, fucking, they think, like, people think their children are gonna die. Like,
right.
That is.
Did you see the new Time magazine cover? The latest issue of Time magazine was on the news this morning, is a illustration of a Black woman holding a baby, but the baby has been cut out of the picture because it's a representation of or their depiction of what Black moms are thinking, that they're going to lose their child.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was, only just from seeing the illustration, tears. Because that put it into so much perspective for me. Because my kids, they're all half white. They could pass for white. They'll never have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Ever.
And that's the part about privilege, right? If this is the first time in your life that you're seeing that there's a disparity, that is privilege, right? For me to have had the boy be arrested, for me to figure out that this was a problem, that is privilege. So I'm sorry to cut you off, April. You can
no,
continue.
you're fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And I think privilege, everybody has privilege. I mean, men have privilege. Hello.
Everybody,
Between men and women, there's male privilege. Come on. So to say there's no white privilege is kind of like, well, then you have to say, oh, this isn't a man's world. It's fair, and women are getting paid the same, and they didn't have to give us our right to vote and all that. So there's definitely privileges. There's privilege just being born normal. I mean, you see somebody born without any arms.
Yeah.
You're more privileged than they are.
They're
like,
more privileged.
how can you say, I don't see
Yeah.
color, I don't see a difference, and they're literally walking around with no arms. So you don't even hold the door for them because it's like, okay, we all have arms. I don't see.
I don't see it.
Right.
I don't see the privilege.
I don't see it. Let's play dodgeball. I don't see it.
I don't see that.
and he literally has no arms.
Yeah. And to your point, right? Like, even, I saw one thing about privilege that was saying, like, your ability to hold your partner's hand in public is a privilege, right? Because many gay and lesbian people can't do that, especially in other places of the world. I live in New York. Gay marriage is allowed and legal and all of that, and that's fantastic. But that doesn't mean, I think there's a difference between the law and then what is socially acceptable and what people will, people are still going to look, and they're still going to ask, and they're still going to talk about it. And that's the issue at hand with race today, right? That is the issue, that the laws, some of the laws, I'm not going to make a general blanket statement, but some laws, like, for example, mortgage lending, when you go to buy a house, it says mortgage lending is okay everywhere. But then on the other side of that is, but it's just not happening, right? It's just not happening because of these types of situations.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, there was and that's one of my friend who's a GP, general practitioner, said that when she was training and she just finished medical school and all that, her professor was trying to be helpful. She said, get your CV, make sure you got your photo on the CV. We want my photo to go on the CV with my Nigerian name. Like, that's not enough. But he was trying to be helpful, but in his head, to go around to publicly talk to people, like, no. I'd rather they accidentally get me in the interview. But his privilege meant that he didn't even think about that. Why would you? You have to see your life through your own lens. And you hope that other people are seeing the same thing you're seeing. And that's the point. You hope the other people are seeing what you're seeing. Me, a black person, I hope the other person was seeing what I was seeing. But then we're like, they weren't seeing it. right? You know, I have privilege by being Nigerian who grew up somewhere where everybody was black, and and my family had money. Therefore, I wasn't poor, but I knew there were poor people. You can't pretend you don't see that, because my parent had to tell me, you're not, you're just lucky you're getting stuff. Other people don't get that. When you come to another country like this, that's why things went over my head, because I wasn't seeing what other black people who grew up here were seeing. I didn't see what a black man, my black cousins who were men, were seeing, because their experience were different. They get pulled over. I've never been pulled over in my car. I'm black female, therefore not a threat, frankly. But my black cousins were pulled, and we wouldn't have known unless you're having a conversation about that. That's why it's okay that you don't see what you didn't see, but then when you spend time in bucket to place it, in pocket to place, you don't talk to each other. That's what causing the confusion. Everybody's thinking that the other person is seeing exactly what they're seeing, just like the Facebook feed. That's why the election was a shock to a lot of people, because in your feed you were seeing,
You were like,
yeah,
exactly.
To say
and so
to,
when you accidentally see another feed of someone saying, yeah, we're gonna win, like, how? You gonna,
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
in what
Obehi,
planet? Because your feed is going this way, their feed is
Is-
going something else. And then
right.
the only time everybody now join hands together is when the result shows up.
yep.
It's like, what the hell just happened here? Well, because we've been in one bubble. So it makes sense for us to have more and more conversations, really. I'm so happy about this guy died, and I want to be able to think that this that he's not going to have died in vain. That this was the turn of it, because other black men had died. We've seen other videos before.
Right.
So why was
Way
this
too many.
particular video? Why did it do this to us right now? Why did it wake us up? Why was this video? And it might be a combination of things. So we have to say 2020, God bless 2020. However squeaky that sounds, we had people couldn't go to work anymore. So you have to deal with that shit now. You don't have to hide and say, I'm just going to go to work. You're not going to no work. You're home in quarantine. So you're going to have to sit with those feelings. So that's one thing. And then that video with Amy Cooper, that's what triggered it off. Amy Cooper doing this dog, it's very obvious, using her whiteness as a weapon. And for a few days later, to see another guy died, it was like this is what she was trying to create. That itself was privilege. So you know it's wrong. So you know, so you're not saying, oh, I didn't know, well, I don't see color. You knew, you saw it, and you decided to weaponize it. That is what people, that's why a lot of white people are shocked by it. Like, it's one thing to say it didn't happen, but to see someone deliberately want to call the police and threaten him, that's what I'm going to do, because using his worst fears. Wow. And that's when people woke up. And then this guy, the one on the knee, it wasn't the fact that there's another black guy on the floor being throttled by a policeman. It's the fact that this policeman had his hand in his pocket.
Yeah, smirking.
That was it. It wasn't, I'm not threatening you. I don't feel threatened anymore. But what the hand in pocket suggested was disdain. In other words, I'm not threatened by you at all, and nobody can do anything about it. Hand in pocket. The only, when you think about it, when you
It's a
put your hand in your pocket,
relaxed
it's a
position,
relaxed, yes, a relaxed position while you have your knee on someone's neck.
While
What
he's
the fuck
crying out.
was that? That is the part that people got to see, because even though they don't remember why it was upsetting, they say, yeah, he's on the floor, but why is it upsetting me more? It's because of the look of him. This wasn't someone hiding. This is not, I shot him because I was scared he was going to shoot me.
Yeah, he knew he was on camera. He didn't care.
Yes, and exactly 8 minutes.
That did not
Like,
You're
oh,
phase
I can
on
him
see
at
you're
camera.
all.
videotaping me,
I can
but
see y'all. Right, and the
nothing's
reason
gonna
why,
happen because I'm the
there we
police.
go. Because guess what? We are now in a wave in a country that had now perpetuated it, didn't allow it to happen, because you have a president calling it out that supports this kind of nonsense. That's why the audacity of it is the audacity. I'm not hiding that I'm trying to show someone.
It's
I'm going to
becoming
do it and prove
too,
you.
from what I'm seeing, it's not just, it is a racism issue. That's bottom line. It's a racism issue. It's also a power issue. It's a pure abuse of power, because you have so many not individuals of color in power, basically controlling the entire country and how things are run. And of course things are going to go to shit for people who aren't white or who can't pass for white, because we aren't in those offices to make influential decisions.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I have a little bit of a different perspective. The training, everything that is for someone to become a police officer is a big problem. Okay. Yeah. It is a big problem. It's the dehumanization begins the first day of training. Yeah. And in all ways, and I think that, and you see it, if you are married to someone in this, or like know somebody very closely, you see that they have to humanize someone to treat someone that way. Yeah. Right. There's a reason that, immigrants are called illegal aliens. Because it is easier to
not see them as humans.
As non-human. And that, I mean, that is because the human brain cannot do that to another human. Yeah. Also, I mean, in my understanding of it, that's the biggest problem, is that the prejudice, like human brains have prejudice. It's a shortcut we use, right? It's like buckets of, to try to shortcut things. Yeah. The problem is racism is backed by power. So a lot of times people are like, well, why can't a white person, why can't, I think there's like a whole question around why can't there ever be racism towards whites, right? And the reason is because the definition of racism is that means that it is backed by power. And so that's why. It's not because you don't have a voice.
Prejudice.
It's not because of prejudice. It's because of the definition of racism is actually that whatever that is backed by power. Mm-hmm. And that's really important, I think, because, and can we talk for a second before, there's two things. One, Kori was very upset that, and we fear, I will just be honest, I agree with her on this. We fear that in 2 weeks, this is going to go away.
That was my biggest thing, is that, as I was saying in the beginning, you said it you see it in the coaching industry. I see it in the online influencer industry in general, in that people get so caught up in the movement. They get so swept up in, oh, I'm going to use my platform to do this, or I'm going to use it to do that, for 2 weeks or for 3 weeks, or for what are you going to do 1 month from now, 2 months from now? How are you going to continue to use your influence and your power to make a difference? Because if you aren't doing this long term, you're still part of the fucking problem. And I finally spoke up to my own audience about it. And I'm now up to like 25 people who just left my email list, like, that tells me all I need to know about you. Bye. I can't. And I refuse to stand by and just not do something. So, yeah.
I think for everybody in the coaching industry, this is like a call to continue on this conversation, not let this conversation come off the table.
Yeah. Well, what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said, I like his, if you've heard about the dust in the air, how racism is a dust in the air. It seems invisible until you let the lights shine in. You might have to look that up to see the full thing. Yeah. So, I mean, so, I mean, like, if you haven't cleaned your television in 7 days, you're going to go there. It's going to be dusty. And you could say, okay, right now, 3 times a day, I'm going to dust this TV stand. There's always going to be a sprinkle of dust there. Like, it's never going to go away. You can't say I'm going to do this for 90 days and then stop. It's always going to trickle back in. So this, unfortunately, it's something that's going to have to be like maintenance work. Keep it at bay, but it's never, my personal opinion, racism's never going to go away, because as long as people have the ability to hate, there's always going to be something to hate. Who you love or what you like.
Yeah.
So.
What do you guys think would help things though, right? Like, is there anything that we can do to improve the situation for, and I would say, because I think like when I think of impact driven, I really think about it as like, it doesn't have to be this grand thing like you donate and create a school in Africa. Like it sounds so like it sounds so, you know, stereotypical, right? But like I think that we can make an impact in a much more meaningful way, right? Like that matters one person at a time. Yeah. So what are some things that we might be able to do collectively, either as a coaching industry, as an influence, as a person that has an audience? Like, what can we do?
Well, I would say, I'll let somebody answer like the coaching industry, but just personally in your living room, when you're at the mall, when you're with your friends and it's just you and, you know, your white friends or colleagues or workers, calling out the racism. You know, if you're at the grocery store and you hear somebody saying something, calling it out like you would call out somebody abusing a dog, you know, and it doesn't have to be this big grand gesture, but just letting them know like that's not okay. And sometimes people are not, I don't know, sometimes people are just ignorant, and it just takes somebody to say, no, to just, oh, wow, like nobody's ever told me this was wrong before. So, you know, and then that person can change another person and it could just spread.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I also think like, I don't want to sound mean, but I think in white communities, if you're generally a loving person that accepts people, you don't want to see that there is some racism going on.
Yeah.
And, you know, you believe like, okay, well, I'm not in the Ku Klux Klan. I don't agree with any of that crap, right? Like, you know, then they start to believe they're not racist. But I think there's
a textbook racist by definition of extreme.
Yeah, but then you're like the other three cops.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't have my knee on his neck, but...
and one of them was Asian. It was two whites and one Asian, and I just looked at him.
For some reason, that bothered me. It's like, no, not the Asian guy.
Yeah, that is what.
I don't know why.
Because he's a person of color. It's like,
yes,
how could
exactly.
you just stand there? And he tried to push someone away who was trying to come in and help. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? That's a human being.
Yeah, so I think just being quiet, like you're in your, you know, if you're a white person and you're in your white neighborhood and you see black people moving in and your neighbor is like, oh, there goes the neighborhood. I mean, just calling that out, because by not calling out and just being like, I can't stand these people, they're so racist. You're just like those other three cops.
So it's like not being afraid to speak up, because
we're not saying riot or
protest.
Just like that's not appropriate.
Don't be doing that. It's not for you. I've been talking to my my own community, my group about that, thinking about, you know, could have been asking what will I do, and I've had like a coffee chat with people just you know, if you want to talk to me, come talk to me, because I don't want you just sticking on it. And it's like, oh, what should we do? And I said, actually, one, you just educate yourself. Just read, watch movies, do the things that we're consciously doing it now. It's not like I accidentally saw this movie on Netflix. No. You literally go and find a list and you educate yourself like you're studying for something.
Yeah. And we'll attach, I will say, we can attach a lot of resources. I mean, I have a ton. We'll give you.
Yeah, there are many.
And if people are confused with it, start with the stuff that's meant for kids.
Honestly.
Yeah. Start with the stuff that is meant for kids.
For kids. That's a really good idea.
And then go to the stuff that's meant for adults.
Because it's not for night. Some of them are not night viewing, they're not night reading, or in terms of, it's not for the faint-hearted, some of them. But you're going to have to get yourself in there. Like, I love that, Kori. Start light. But, and just because you're looking at all this stuff doesn't mean you have to take them all as fact. You're just going to be able to sort yourself. You're studying. When you study
Right.
something, you don't take everything, but you're going to consciously study and looking at the information and then think, okay, what do I know about it? What do I care about here? What's bugging me about it? What question do I have that's not been answered by this text here? Let me go and ask someone that I know. Oh, I know. I'll call Obi. Obi, I've got this thing. I read this thing. I do not understand what this particular thing means. Can you have a conversation? And we'll have a conversation about that. And I can tell you the fact that I, even Nigerian, have privilege. Some people wouldn't take that. They think all blacks are one people. They're not one people like that. So we're different facets to us. But if you ask my opinion, I can say, oh, actually, I can't answer that question. But go and ask my friend Aprille. She's American. Because that's a whole different conversation there, a whole different experience. So that's what I would say. Read, study, reflect on it, write your questions down you want to ask, find another black person, find another Asian person to ask questions. And ask an Asian person, do you feel like you're a white person? And then let them tell you like I kind of do. Or they kind of tell you, actually I don't. But then you need to be able to know they're different. The people of color are all different. We're not just one.
Yeah, it's not like one bucket.
No, it's not like that. Oh yeah, get one, buy the other one's free. It ain't that.
Exactly.
It's like I have one fan, but no, it doesn't play like that. And I think what I said to people would do what you feel it's natural for you to do. If it's natural for you to write about it more.
Yeah.
If it's natural for you to go on Facebook Live and talk about it, do that. If it's natural for you to be experiential, then go for the picket fence, because people can do that. People just feel like that's what you would normally do about causes that are important to you. Then go and do that. But you do not, it's not a one size fits all. You're going to find something that fits you. You're going to learn like anything else. But one of the things, talking to diversity in the online space in terms of if you have a large platform and all of that stuff, and what do we do? Rachel Rogers, who is online coach, I love her.
Oh
Now,
my God, that
Rachel
was
wrote,
amazing.
she wrote an article about diversity and online space, like how to do that. This is like months ago she wrote it. But one of the things that she said, she thought would bring controversy, was she said, for all of you big businesses who want to know what to do, go for the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail being the black woman. In other words, you need to be able to put somebody who everybody had disrespected. They're the last of the bucket. Put them in front, and don't just put one, put multiple of them, because then that shows that you're serious. But I start telling people they can get used to seeing us. That's the point. Oh, I don't see color. No, you will when you see
that
5 of
is
us
a
on your
problem.
panel.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I don't see color until you have 5 of us on your panel. Like, oh, that's a lot of people. Yeah.
And her Instagram live as well, she said it, and what's standing out to everybody from the biggest thing she said was that white people are fragile.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid. And it was amazing. Her Instagram live was just jaw-dropping. Like,
Can we talk about that for, we only have 5 minutes, but okay. Couple things. One, white fragility. From my understanding of it, like of reading it, etc., all those uncomfortable feelings that come up probably and have throughout this conversation, no matter what color you are, but specifically for white people, that is the definition of white fragility. Am I right or wrong? And Aprille, I don't know if you want to fact check me on that, like, or anybody else.
I have not read the book.
Okay. Okay. You're like, I don't know.
I
haven't read the book either.
So from my understanding, it's basically like when a white person almost is like feeling uncomfortable with what's happening and starts to wake up to the whole thing, and then they're afraid to post or to write or to talk or to do something different.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think everyone's entitled to their feelings. I don't care what color, what race you are. Everybody is entitled to your feelings. And in this process, like, know that it will be uncomfortable. It's just like every other personal growth endeavor you're going to do, right? So like, I had a conversation with one of my white friends who I said, like, it's interesting because I just reflected to her, like, the feelings that are coming up are the exact feelings you're working through in your business. Isn't that a beautiful opportunity, right? Because she posted something that made her feel really uncomfortable because of the thread in the conversation underneath it. And I said, that's beautiful. It's an opportunity, right? That is where we grow. And I think as coaches, we're always looking for the opportunity for growth. This is it. It's in your lap. Take it.
I think the problem though becomes is that not so much when people aren't expressing the emotions and not feeling the things. It's when they don't.
Yeah.
When you're not reacting at all, or when you're staying neutral on the situation. And I also understand I can't even attack people who are staying neutral because I don't know why they're staying neutral. But if you're staying neutral to protect your image, to protect whatever, that's the wrong reason for staying neutral.
Right.
You have to be willing to be vulnerable, to put it out there, because otherwise people are just going to assume that you're just, you're one of the other three policemen.
Yeah.
I just think from like that, it's a bit like it's putting your head in the sand. And Mariana, you're right. You feel what you feel, and you're ready to do work when you're ready to do work. But you will have to bear the consequences of that. If you put your head in the sand because you're owing the bank money, they will come and collect eventually. You're going to have to sort this out. So it's okay that you're scared that, put your head in the sand. I don't want to deal with the loan. That's fine. But know that it will come to your doorstep. So the question now is, do you want to be in front of it or do you want to get into the bank and come to drag you out? That's the point I'm trying to make here. So it's okay that you're scared. It's okay that you don't know what to say. It's okay that you're confused and back again, and you're angry again. All of it is okay, but seek support with it. You can't do it. None of us can do it on our own. That's why I'm speaking out now. Why my cousin, we were silent. We're complicit in it. We try to acclimatize or assimilate. We try to do those things to pretend that we weren't feeling these things. And that didn't help my white friends to be able to know that that's upsetting, that I needed more support because I didn't say anything. So it's all of us too. We're all going to be learning how to grow. We're going to have to post stuff on our walls now that we didn't want because we didn't want to be the black militant person doing that.
Yeah.
So now we're going to have to sit in the truth a bit more. We're going to have to say, well, people are going to leave your email list. People are going to unfriend you. I've made more friends this week and I'm thinking, wow, I'm popular this week. But it's going to happen. And that's okay. It's like people come in, people go. But that's life, isn't it? So
it will show you too who your true people are.
Absolutely.
Just in terms of who you're meant to be with, who you attract, and that kind of thing.
So to wrap things up on a personal daily basis, call it out when you see it. It's not always the Ku Klux Klan looking thing. So educate yourself on what that looks like.
But when you do see the one in the maybe, or
So that's number one. Number two, speak up. Even if you're making mistakes. I mean, my first post was very ingrained with white privilege. Like, I will just admit it now. Now that I have seen so much, I'm like, shit, that was horrible. And I'm still okay with it. And I'm still going to leave it up.
Because you said something.
I said something, right?
You said something.
To ask for support. I mean, I'm here for anyone who wants to talk about it. I know some people of color are a little bit offended when you're asking for help with this department. So if you encounter that, number one, don't be alarmed. And again, not all people of color are created equal. Like it's not, I mean, we're all created equal, but we're not all going to have the same, come talk to us perspective. Some people will, some people won't. Some people are fucking exhausted of explaining this a million times. And I get that, right? I get that. And so, and then lastly, I think if you are, no matter who you are too, like, I think this is also an opportunity to educate ourselves on that racism piece. What is the piece of the governmental control, of the invisible societal control that many people aren't seeing, and what is that experience? Thank you, April, for speaking up about that. I think those are things that people of color do not understand. So thank you for sharing that. And any last words?
we should do this again.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
And we should keep doing this.
talking.
Yeah, keep talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
should
the
keep
other
doing
piece. Keep talking.
Keep
Don't let this
speaking
die
up.
down in 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Have an amazing day.
Thanks,
Bye.
Mariana.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dave.
Nice
Thanks,
seeing
Kori.
everyone. Yes.
Bye.